At 7,500 meters down, your ears can't pop. There's no air left to bargain with. The only sound is the thin, metallic singing of cable under tension as a lander disappears into black water. Above, the Pacific looks calm. Below, the Mariana Trench opens like a wound in the planet, and the winch keeps paying out line. Hours later, the screen flares with a pale blur. Not a shark, not a giant squid. Something softer, almost unfinished, drifts into the cone of the camera's lamps and then stalls, hovering with a strange, quiet confidence. It has broad, wing-like fins, an eel-like tail, and skin the color of old bone. For a heartbeat, it seems to look back. Then, with one lazy flick, it glides out of frame, swallowed by the dark as if it was never there. During the Hadal Ecosystem Studies expedition, scientists described seeing a white, translucent fish do exactly that, filmed over the trench floor in record-breaking depths, and they admitted it stunned them. If you've ever pictured the Mariana Trench as a place where monsters live, reality is more unsettling. The Hadal zone, the region from about 6,000 to 11,000 meters, exists only in deep ocean trenches, and it's named after Hades, the Greek god of the underworld. Down there, temperature hovers just above freezing, and sunlight doesn't just fade, it is erased. Pressure becomes a physical law you can feel in your imagination. At the trench's deepest point, there's nearly 11,000 meters of water overhead. A weight so extreme one expedition compared it to 100 adult elephants standing on your head. And it doesn't press down, it squeezes from every direction. As biologist Mackenzie Geringer put it, it's like an elephant standing on top of your thumb. Fossa das Marianas is the trench itself. The creature we can follow is its emblematic vertebrate, the Hadal snailfish. So here's the twist. The animal that may best represent this abyss is not armored, not huge, not built like a war machine. It is Pseudoliparis swirei, so delicate-looking that in our shallow world it seems impossible it could exist at all. Scientists have caught and described this species from the Mariana Trench between roughly 6,900 and nearly 8,000 meters. Depths where the ocean behaves less like water and more like a crushing, invisible vice. In the Hadal realm, snailfishes are not just survivors. They are often the dominant fish, the most common vertebrates in an environment that seems designed to exclude vertebrates. In fact, the Hadal fish community is different from the abyssal plains above it, where rat-tails and deep eels dominate. In trench depths, Geringer notes, snailfishes often take over as the most common fish, an upside-down kingdom where the soft-bodied become the rulers. But let's be precise about the stage. The Mariana Trench is the deepest known trench on Earth, and NOAA notes that modern multi-beam sonar surveys place the Challenger Deep around 10,194 meters deep, give or take about 40 meters. People have chased that number for more than a century. First with weighted rope in the 1870s, later with echo sounders, and eventually with machines built to go where no human body ever could. NOAA traces that history from the HMS Challenger soundings in 1875 to the Challenger 2 surveys in 1951 and on to modern mapping. In 2012, James Cameron descended solo in the deep-sea Challenger and spent hours over the desert-like seafloor, collecting samples and video. Yet even the Mariana Trench has a boundary, a line in the darkness where fish life seems to stop. Biochemist Paul Yancey and colleagues argued that marine fish may be constrained from inhabiting the deepest quarter of the ocean, roughly 8,400 to 11,000 meters, because the chemistry required to keep proteins working under pressure pushes their bodies toward an osmotic limit. The Hadal snailfish lives close to that edge. It is not the bottom of the trench monster of legend. It is a sentinel of the upper Hadal slope, living in a zone so extreme that the deepest fish is still thousands of meters above the deepest mud. The frontier has also shifted recently. In 2023, new video observations in the Izu-Ogasawara Trench recorded a snailfish at 8,436 meters, and 2 specimens from the Japan Trench were collected from 8,022 meters, among the deepest fish ever caught. Those records don't dethrone the Mariana Trench. They underline something even stranger. Wherever the planet's trenches cut deepest, snailfishes keep showing up at the edge of what fish physiology may allow, as if the family has evolved to live along a pressure cliff. That tension between the trench's ultimate depth and the snailfish's living limit is where this story becomes more than a weird nature fact. Because to survive there, Pseudoliparis swirei didn't just become deeper. It became different in the ways that matter most. Chemistry, bone, skin, senses, even time itself. Genomic studies describe the Hadal snailfish as the deepest vertebrate in the ocean and a model for understanding adaptation to high hydrostatic pressure, darkness, and scarcity. And here is a detail that reframes its ancient aura. Evidence suggests these snailfish may have entered and fully adapted to Hadal life only in the last few million years, spreading into different Pacific trenches within about 1 million years. Their lineage is older, but the final step into the trench, into a world with no dawn, may be surprisingly recent on evolutionary timescales. Picture the prehistoric Pacific in the Miocene. Continents are still rearranging their edges. Inland arcs rise and drown. One tectonic plate dives beneath another, and slowly a scar deepens into what we now call the Mariana System. In the genomic analysis, researchers note that estimated divergence times and trench formation timelines overlap closely enough to tempt a speculation. Ancestors of the Hadal snailfish may have already been living deep, around 1 kilometer down, when the trench's deepest trough formed, then ratcheted downward as the habitat itself opened beneath them. That may be part of why the snailfish survived, while so many lineages vanished. Mass extinctions slam ecosystems from the top down, but trenches are buffered by kilometers of water. When catastrophe rolls across continents, the trench feels it late, if at all, like thunder heard through a wall. That doesn't make it safe, it makes it a refuge that only the right kind of body can use, and a prison for everything else. The Hadal snailfish's body looks like it was designed by the trench itself. Minimal hard parts, no wasted weight, nothing that can crack under pressure. Deep-sea fishes often abandon gas-filled swim bladders because gas compresses. In the Hadal zone, a bubble is a liability. Research on deep-sea fish tissues notes that many deep-living fishes rely on gelatinous materials and other strategies for buoyancy instead of gas bladders. In Hadaliparids, scientists describe high volumes of gelatinous tissues and watery muscles, an architecture that helps them hover without needing a fragile pocket of air. If you could watch one up close, you might be disturbed by how soft it seems. The skin can look translucent, as if the animal is half ghost, half fish. It often lacks bold pigmentation, and modern genomic work notes loss of melanin and degraded vision in this species. Even the skeleton tells the same story. A study using micro-CT scans across dozens of snailfish species found that, with increasing depth, key bones in the jaw and skull tend to shrink, and skeletal elements can be reduced and lightened. In a place where pressure punishes rigidity and food punishes weight, less bone can be more life, but softness alone doesn't solve the real enemy. Pressure doesn't just crush bodies, it tries to crush chemistry. Proteins change shape under high pressure. Enzymes slow. Membranes behave differently. That's where one of the most famous deep-sea molecules enters the story, trimethylamine N-oxide, or TMAO. Yancey and colleagues describe TMAO as a common osmolyte that stabilizes proteins against pressure. and they documented that it increases with depth in many fishes. Think of TMAO, like a biochemical brace, an invisible scaffolding that helps keep the tiny gears of life from warping in the squeeze. As depth increases, fishes accumulate more of it, but that comes at a cost. Higher internal osmolality, edging closer to the saltiness of seawater, which can strain osmoregulation. That's why scientists have suggested a possible physiological limit for fish around 8,500 meters. The Hadal snailfish lives right up against that ceiling, like a mountaineer climbing to the edge of breathable air. And it doesn't only rely on chemical braces. Studies of Hadal snailfish genomes report extensive changes in genes linked to perception, metabolism, and circadian rhythms, evidence that living without sunlight and under constant pressure reshapes the biology of time and sensing. The same genomic work highlights a duplication of a ferritin gene that may increase tolerance to reactive oxygen species, tiny, destructive molecules that can accumulate when cells are stressed. In the trench, even oxygen can be a threat, because stress makes chemistry messy. Now imagine how the world feels to the snailfish. In a realm without day or night, vision is no longer a primary sense. The genome analysis discusses degraded vision and reports losses or disruptions in several circadian rhythm genes, suggesting that the machinery animals use to keep a daily clock can be altered when there is no dawn to set it. So what replaces sight? The ocean itself becomes a sensory organ. The snailfish likely reads vibrations and pressure gradients the way we read faces. It may taste the water for chemical trails drifting like scent through a dark hallway, because food does not grow down there. The Hadal zone depends on what falls from above: marine snow, carcasses, bits of carbon raining from the sunlit world. WHOI notes that some trench organisms depend on carbon-based matter that falls from upper layers, and that trenches may accumulate carbon in ways that matter for the global carbon cycle. The trench is shaped like a funnel. It collects. It concentrates. It turns a vast ocean into a narrow canyon where scarcity and sudden plenty can alternate like a heartbeat. That's why baited landers are so revealing. Drop a piece of fish into the Hadal darkness and the seafloor can erupt with life, mostly scavengers. Amphipods in particular swarm bait in many trenches, and deep trench studies have documented how these crustaceans congregate in large numbers, consume food fast, and then disperse back into the dark. This is the Hadal economy. Find the rare meal, devour it quickly, vanish before the next predator arrives. And in this economy, the Hadal snailfish is not a victim. It is a hunter built for opportunism. Picture it gliding over sediment like a white shadow, fins spread like wings, body barely moving. Then, sudden motion. A mouth opens with a quick suction snap, pulling an amphipod inward before the prey even understands it's being targeted. Scientists studying Hadal snailfishes emphasize feeding ecology as one of the drivers of their success, and the trench footage repeatedly shows snailfish arriving where prey congregates. Now bring the human story closer, because the trench doesn't give up secrets easily. In 2014, the Schmidt Ocean Institute's research vessel, Falkor, hosted the Hadal Ecosystem Studies Expedition, a mission that didn't just rush to the bottom, but tried to sample across the trench like ecologists mapping a mountain range. Jeff Drazen, one of the co-chief scientists, explained the logic. It's like trying to understand a mountain ecosystem by only looking at its summit. Over that cruise, teams performed what one report called an unprecedented marathon of lander stations, 92 deployments, ranging from about 5,000 to 10,600 meters. To reach them, Engineers build machines that feel like science fiction until you see the scars. The UK-built Hadal lander, designed to dive where most vehicles fail, helped film deepest fish in the Mariana Trench and even reached the Swirei Deep at 10,545 meters during trench work, while also capturing the first footage of a mysterious supergiant amphipod alive. And WHOI describes a newer generation of autonomous vehicles, like the Orpheus AUVs, engineered to withstand pressures more than 1,000 times what we feel at the surface, and to navigate narrow, rocky trench terrain, sometimes even working in swarms. Every upgrade in technology is another door handle on a locked world. And it wasn't smooth. One cruise log notes that a coring respirometer sat stuck in mud at 7,000 meters, an expensive reminder that the trench is not a laboratory bench. Every deployment is a gamble against pressure, cold, and the simple brutality of distance. But the rewards were real. The expedition reported active communities across the Hadal zone and repeatedly broke records for depth and discovery. When the white translucent fish appeared, broad fins, eel-like tail, slow glide, Alan Jameson captured the emotional truth of the moment. We really do get the feeling we are at the frontier of marine science. From that frontier came a name, Pseudoliparis swirei. In 2017, researchers formally described the species from individuals collected in the Mariana Trench at depths between 6,898 and 7,166 meters. The name Swirei honors Herbert Swire, an officer on the HMS Challenger expedition, the 19th century voyage that helped reveal the deep ocean as a realm of life, not a sterile abyss. The creature is, in a sense, a living footnote to human curiosity. A fish named for a sailor who measured darkness with rope, now studied with cameras that see in black. But naming a creature is not the same as understanding it. We still don't know how Hadal snailfish reproduce down there, how they find mates in a world that can feel like endless night. Do they gather at certain depths like hidden villages? Do they lay eggs in protected cracks, guarded by a parent, as some snailfish relatives do in shallower waters? There are hints, but no complete answers. In the trench, even growing up, is an engineering problem. And then there's the mystery of isolation. Trenches are separated by thousands of kilometers. How do snailfishes appear in multiple trenches? Genomic research suggests Hadal snailfish spread into different Pacific trenches within about 1 million years, raising hard questions about dispersal and migration. Are larvae carried by deep currents like drifting seeds? Do adults cross planes we rarely observe? Or did similar trench-adapted lineages evolve separately, converging on the same ghostly form because the trench forces the same solutions? Even the invisible companions of the snailfish are becoming part of the story. A 2022 study examined gut microbiomes of Hadal fishes and included Pseudoliparis swirei from the Mariana Trench, exploring the microbes associated with these deepest living fish. In an ecosystem where every calorie counts, a microscopic ally could be the difference between hovering another day and fading into sediment. If the trench were only remote, this would already feel mythic. But the deeper we look, the more we discover a darker truth. The Mariana Trench is not beyond human reach. It is beneath it. In 2017, Jameson and colleagues reported extraordinary levels of persistent organic pollutants in amphipods from trenches deeper than 10,000 meters, showing that industrial chemicals can end up in the deepest food webs on Earth. In 2019, researchers reported microplastics and synthetic particles in the guts of deep-sea amphipods from multiple trenches, illustrating that plastic contamination has reached even these Hadal ecosystems. And reporting based on a deep-sea debris database described a plastic bag found in the Mariana Trench at nearly 10,175 meters, one of the deepest known pieces of plastic trash. Pause. on what that means for our ghost fish. The Pseudoliparis swirei doesn't live at 10,975 meters, but it feeds in a system that connects the trench. Amphipods eat the falling detritus. Predators eat amphipods. Pollutants concentrate as they move upward. The Hadal snailfish may be living proof that life can adapt to Earth's harshest natural pressures and at the same time become a recorder of our artificial pressures, our chemicals, our plastics, our reach. This is why scientists care about the Hadal zone beyond the thrill of deepest. Swirei notes that studying trench organisms helps us understand adaptation to extreme environments, informs the carbon cycle, and even advances ideas relevant to exploring oceans beyond Earth, like those suspected beneath the icy crusts of moons around Jupiter and Saturn. When a vertebrate can live under 1,000 atmospheres, it redraws what we think life can do and what we can damage. So return with me to that first pale blur on the screen. In the lamplight, the Hadal snailfish looks almost gentle. It does not roar. It does not threaten. It simply exists in a place where it should not. It glides through a darkness that compresses steel. It feeds where food is a rumor. It endures where time has no sunrise. And it does all of that not because the trench is a realm of monsters, but because evolution can make a monster of pressure and then craft an answer. Somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 meters down, on the trench's shadowed slopes, Pseudoliparis Swirei continues its quiet patrol. Above it, the ocean stacks into miles. Below it, the trench keeps falling into a depth no fish can claim, and that final gap between the deepest living vertebrate and the deepest point on Earth may be the most haunting part of this story. Not what we found, but what still lies beneath the line where fish life stops. Because the Mariana Trench is not a single place. It is a question mark carved into the planet. Every expedition lowers its instruments like a hand into that question, feeling for answers in the cold. Sometimes the hand comes back empty. Sometimes it comes back carrying a new species, a new gene, a new chemical clue. And sometimes, for a second, it comes back with a ghost on the screen, white and winged, gliding past as if to remind us that the abyss is not only deep, it is alive, and it is watching.